Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Now that Mark's son is here after changing the diaper, I think a lot of people in this room understand that. I know I do. So we're here for Mark Semón's retirement. Before we get started with reading some stuff, kind of telling about what we have up here, Mark wants to introduce his family here, so why don't you go ahead and do that?
This is my wife, Lolly.
You're going to have to speak up.
This is my wife, Lolly. Next week, we're going to celebrate her birthday and our 49th wedding anniversary. She says she's only 55. I don't understand the math. So you guys had to put up with me only 24 years, so she's 49 years. And this is my daughter, Jamela, and my granddaughter, McKenna, my son, Evan, my grandson, Eddie.
Who's
Give a
clean?
fist bump, Eddie. And this is my nephew, Vance, from McPherson, and his friend, Amy, and family friend, Kim.
Great. Welcome, you guys. Appreciate you being here for this. By way of explanation, we have this frame, not really even a certificate. Normally we give a plaque with a badge on it, which Mark has decided that his sesquicentennial, you know what I'm saying, badge is going to be on it. However, Fifley's machine is broken. So you'll hear this again in another couple of days. The plaques cannot be made, but we don't want to just not give him something here. So he's getting this, and then when the plaque is done, his badge will be on there with the same information that's on this. So I'm going to give you that. I'm going to read this aloud for you guys so you know what it said, and it also tells you a little bit about Mark. Mark Semón has faithfully served the citizens of Manhattan and Riley County with integrity and professionalism for over 23 years. Mark began his career with the Riley County Police Department on July 5th, 1999, working first as a custodian until being hired as the department's supply technician on May 9th, 2003. Mark fulfilled his service to the department with excellence. He was known throughout his career as being a man of integrity, dependability, humility, and a strong work ethic. In essence, a solid employee. He was even noted in his first evaluation as being too willing to help others. In recognition of his commitment to the department, which got him in trouble sometimes, in recognition of his commitment to the department and propensity for going above and beyond to help fellow co-workers, he was presented with the Director's Award in 2000. Mark epitomized a culture of service. As a supply technician, Mark had an impact on every area of the department, which required strong working relationships with vendors and the public. His primary goal was to ensure that all employees had the supplies needed to safely perform their duties. If there was a challenge, Mark worked relentlessly to devise a solution. Yet, it wasn't just the employees that Mark worked to assist. In 2019, he learned of a challenge facing an inmate involving the replacement of a walker. Mark took it upon himself to research walker replacements, something he didn't have to do. He simply overheard the issue and then took it upon himself to follow up, and was able to receive a replacement under warranty. This is just one example of Mark's great character and desire to serve others. Mark's meticulous attention to detail served him well. He consistently managed the supplies of the department in such a way that items were rarely unavailable, and when they were, it was no fault of his own. Mark also had a knack for knowing who had the best deals, the best quality, and the best warranties. In other words, he was tight. He worked to ensure the department's resources were spent wisely and justly. Mark's honesty, humble spirit, and witty sense of humor will be greatly missed by his co-workers. May he look back on his career with admiration and look forward to his future with anticipation. In honor of his impressive career and upon his retirement, the men and women of Riley County Police Department and the citizens of Manhattan and Riley County wish Supply Technician Mark Semón the very best and thank him for his friendship and support that he has provided to his co-workers throughout the year. Then at the bottom is a quote by Nelson Mandela. "What counts in life is not the mere fact that we have lived. It was the difference we have made to the lives of others that will determine the significance of the life we have led." I think that kind of epitomizes your work today. So let's give him a... Because he's retiring with over 20 years of good service, meritorious service, he gets a meritorious pin, which you can put on some clothing that you might want to put it on, or it could be put on the plaque that he is getting. So I'm going to give you that. And here's the Department Challenge coin. He also gets a retirement badge that says the retired Riley County Law Enforcement Agency employee to whom this card is issued has served Riley County for over 23 years. He does not get a handgun. Something like that. So use that with KHP or something like that on your way back and forth to Wichita. In addition, we kind of have the obligatory. Actually, he's getting. We don't have it. We're retiring the little white cup that many of you recognize. He gets one of the last ones. One of these new coffee cups and one of our latest coffee cups. Kind of exciting, right? And really kind of cool, I think, is some parents have come up with this, a hoodie that he can wear. So, good for you. All right, we're going to end it there before I screw something up really bad. And this is obviously the time now where you guys can say things to embarrass you, because I know at the very end he has some prepared or at least memorized remarks about certain individuals in this room, so it'd be a good opportunity for you to get it in first. I also want to point out that he's apparently very adept at speaking in public. This doesn't intimidate him because he's spoken to over 14,000 people before, so he should be good. Go ahead. If anyone has anything they'd like to say, just speak up. You don't need to come up here.
I'll go first.
Okay, I figured you would.
When we selected Mark as the supply tech, I was his division commander. The first thing that I think I said to him was his prime directive. And that prime directive was to maintain a certain item of clothing. He did well with that. He spent the next, I don't know how many years, it would have been 15 years that I'm aware of, searching for this item, stockpiled, and make sure we have it in stock. But as I look around today, Mark, if I was doing your evaluation, I'd have to give you a not meeting expectations. I don't see a single inch of French blue. For those of you who don't get that, the uniform pants used to be French blue. Mark even went, I think, on his own a couple of places and brought back some boxes. He was able to locate all those years. Red flags were up. Oh, we're running out of French blue. We're running out of French blue pants. He was able to find them.
People hated me for that.
And the common comment now is we return back to the Civil War era. I like the.
I didn't take it, Mark. I appreciate it.
I told Captain Cooper, I should be employee of the year for that. He says, you're lucky you still got a job. We hate those pants.
Yeah, Mark's work area was kind of cramped. His office, if you've been down there, so I'm imagining everybody here has been. It's kind of small. He's got a little bitty and often hazardous armory that he works out of. And he's got a supply room that's way too small. But that's the hazardous part. Mark had, he faced two situations that I'm aware of, at least two that I'm aware of, due to his working conditions. His office down in the basement, one day we get a phone call that says, hey, there's water coming down the hall. This was a great flood of, I'm thinking it probably was around 2008 maybe. Our friend firefighters and guys that drive big red trucks were out testing fire hydrants, and they slammed them closed one day, or open, I'm not sure which. And the shut-off, pressure relief valve in the mechanical rooms blew off. So there was a huge stream of water coming out in the mechanical room. The door was closed because that's the way it was supposed to be. The water built up and went underneath the door, down the hall, and started flowing by Mark's office. When he said, hey, that ain't right. And then he joined in with 2 or 3 others of us to force open the door into the mechanical. It was a double door like that.
Water is up to about here.
And you had to push it in. The water was about waist high inside the room, so there was a lot of pressure on the door. We forced it open, and Lieutenant Commander did the backstroke over to the valve and got it shut off. But if Mark hadn't noticed that a little bit of water coming down the hall, it could have been a lot worse. That room it would have filled up with water. And we would have not been able to get in there until the fire department got there and shut the water off on the outside. So,
I had the wisdom not to jump in there. I made Q do it.
yeah. Well, he was suited for it. He's the guy to do that. So. The other incident was, I think Mark holds the record now for the only unintentional discharge of a round not by firearm. It happened in the armory, in the little granite armory that I was talking about. I think he's probably thankful that things worked out the way they did on that tape. And I can only imagine what it would have been like in that small little concrete room with a 9mm round. Bouncing around, like in the movies. So, but all kidding aside, Mark is, as it was mentioned in his plaque there, he had three main things that he had to keep track of. One was the uniform and the clothing, which every uniformed person in the jail, PSAs, and the officers looked to him to supply them with every bit of clothing, and they expected it when they expected it, which was usually right now. Mark did a heck of a job doing that, stocking up the supply room that was crowded. He made cubby holes where there weren't any. And his second biggest chore was to supply all the things that employees needed to do their jobs. Pens, paper in the old days. Just all of those little things. You don't know how many things there are until you start going to Walmart and buying them, or finding someplace else on the internet that you can keep them. The third thing was Mark was tasked with keeping track of all the other stuff in the department. Chairs, tables, big things like cars. He worked real close with the supply, or with Annette in the finance area, keep track of those things. He did that mostly by himself, but fortunately he had farmed out. He farmed those things out to other people, so they had to keep track of them, but Mark was ultimately responsible for finding them. As far as I know, we didn't lose any tanks anywhere, so he did a real fine job.
Found Bill Shirt's gun.
That's right.
Yeah.
Turned it into evidence. Found it 10 years later.
Shotgun was that way once too, wasn't it?
Yeah, okay. Well, then he's missing the other one that he lost. Anyway, Mark has done a heck of a job over the years, as Director Malcolm said, with regards to his working with vendors and finding all the things that he needed to find. He did it. He had to deal with salesmen, he had to deal with people who were the suppliers, that's a daily endless chore, not always pleasant. With the overriding objective of getting what we needed at the least cost. And Mark did that. He put a lot of effort into that. He was diligent with it. He was a smiling face most of the time. Contrary to that picture that's on his office wall. It says, "You want to win?" I think is what it says. Mark had a smiling face, just like he has now, which was quite a change from when we took over. Joe Sullivan was an old Army supply sergeant. It was kind of grouchy. So Mark was a welcome change, did a heck of a job. He didn't get a lot of thanks for what he did, but I'm here to say now, thanks Mark for making my job when I was here a lot easier. And I enjoyed our time together and appreciated all the work you did.
Yeah.
I said it all, I think.
Inventory, did you have to do it this year?
I kind of, well, no. Adrian, raise your hand.
Yeah.
My replacement, she's in charge.
Mark and I used to do the investigations inventory, and it was a nightmare because stuff was always on the move in investigations. And he would call me up all the time, well, what is this? thing that he has a description of Park Paul's file. And he had no idea what it was, and I didn't have an answer for him. He would call me up all the time, so it's kind of easy to set up with an antique diagram. So, the other thing was, Mark was always helping. I was at the crime scene, we always need stuff on a QT. Sometimes, you know, right now, we had to have it. And Mark could just go out the door to us the way we did. So it was always nice to know he had everything ready to go for us when we needed it. Really, thank you very much.
You know, during COVID, I'm reminded that, you know, masks and a lot of things were really hard to get. But he was pretty incredible at going and finding, I think, even whiskey hand sanitizer or something like that. Yeah,
Pretty good.
which usually stayed down in his office. But no, you know, that's something to think about because you're able to get stuff when a lot of others weren't early on. So that again shows his resourcefulness. Yes, Annette.
I just wanted to thank you again, Mark. You made my job a lot easier. You were really nice to work with. Even all my little picky details.
You taught me well.
You put up with them and always put a smile on your face. I was very glad to work with you.
I'll just tell a quick story that kind of maybe encapsulates Mark's personality, which succinctly described it as going to be quiet most of the time and then just boom, just something that's going to make him, you know, be very, very funny. So I do internal affairs investigations, and most of the time we don't take those things very seriously. And we got a letter from a former employee that may or may not have been disgruntled about the terms of their leaving the police department. And the accusation was that one of our former directors, or chief, had stolen the desk, which would be pretty hard to do. It was a very large oak desk. Nonetheless, I was tasked with looking into this, and so as part of that, you know, any item that the police department has a barcode, and you know, it's kind of how we track things. This person had observed the desk being moved, and however, it worked into their mind that the chief, you know, had stolen this desk. So I'm looking into it. As part of it, I had to interview Mark, and so, you know, he takes it just as seriously as I am, and I locate the desk. It's just been moved into the jail. So we moved it from out front into the jail. It wasn't really a hard case to solve. Several weeks later, I get this email from Mark, which is kind of rare that we would have an interaction. And he has taken a picture of a bunch of stuff that he's thrown into a dumpster. And he said, I just wanted you to know I threw these things away in case this former employee accuses me of stealing. So, those are the kind of things that Mark would do, just little bombs every now and then.
So I know it's been said already, but I just want to repeat it. Having supervised you indirectly for quite a while, you saved us a lot of money. I really appreciate that. You're very careful about what you spend money on. You're always looking for good deals. I would imagine over the course of your career, we're talking about tens of thousands of dollars, if not hundreds of thousands that you saved us. I really appreciate that extra effort that you didn't have to do.
And undoubtedly, your former coworker, Rich Lewis, isn't here because you wrecked his truck.
That was you. That's right.
You were supposed to let you start driving.
Anyone else?
I don't think so.
All right, go ahead. I know
Okay.
you have some things
Yeah.
you want to say.
Try not to be too long. I was born in Michigan in 1950 now. Most of you know that we moved here in '99 when my son got a scholarship to K-State, so we moved here so he could live at home and go to school. And for the 18 years prior to that, I'd been self-employed. So my boss was a real jerk. Right? So I was so relieved to come to work for somebody else. And my first boss, I'm sorry to say, my first boss was the best, because when you start off with breakfast sandwiches at Hardee's and end up with ice cream cones at Cream Cup, and of course I'm talking about Mike Wilson. So Mike was a great guy. But yeah, all my supervisors were great. And I just forgot what I was going to say. I had some notes here somewhere. Oh, yeah. I recall two things from my first week here. One was Mark French. He said, "You're going to love this place. You're going to stay here a long time." So for all of you that have said Mark has always been wrong about everything, I'm telling you, he was right about that. The other thing I remember was this kid running across the parking lot to meet me. And he says, "Hi, my name's Kurt Muldrup." I asked Mike Wilson, I said, "Who is that kid?" He says, "That kid's got several kids of his own, you know." But, so those are two things I remember from the first week. But Mark was right. It's a great place to work. And I know you're not supposed to single people out, but Annette was wonderful with me, helping me transition from custodian to supply. And Rhino was great. Like he said, I didn't know my asp from my hobble when I started. So he explained all that stuff to me, and not only would tell me what things were, he would give you a history about it. So that was great. But yeah, I enjoyed all the supervisors I worked with. Sergeant Hagemeister, Sergeant Gerard helped me with gun stuff, and Nicole in administration was always so helpful. And I knew I was going to forget somebody. I shouldn't have started that. But certainly everybody's helped me grow as a person, and I want to thank them. I want to thank my therapist, Dr. Hensley, Dr. London, Dr. Friedline, and the Most Right Reverend Hank Nelson. He's not here today, but Hank was a kind of a spiritual guidance for me, and so I certainly appreciated him, and that's about it. I want to thank everybody for coming, and it's been an honor to support the men and women of the Riley County Police. One more thing, my son has a friend in Denver who has a tamale factory, and they supply all the tamales to the NFL stadiums that sell tamales. So we got 100 red and 100 green, and plus my wife's homemade salsa back there. Beware of the green tamales. Yeah. Of course, Montezuma's Revenge don't last that long, so help yourself. But I hope you can have a tamale before you leave, and again, thanks for coming.
Dismissed. The program is over. Go eat tamales and cupcakes and the famous punch we always have.